This is going to be a tutorial on how to do a video analysis in Logger Pro. You're going to have to do this on a computer. It won't work in your Chromebooks. So you'll go to a computer that has Logger Pro on it and open it. And once you're in, you're going to go to Insert Movie. Then you'll have to find where the movie file is in your computer. Most of the time at school, it's going to be on the Z drive in my Mr. Peterson folder on the Z drive, but here I have it on my desktop. So I insert this video. This one happens to be me and my kids bouncing on the trampoline. Okay. When you get a new video in, you're going to want to click on this this button down in the lower right-hand corner that opens your toolbox. And the very first thing you want to do is consider three things. You need to set your origin for what is up and down, left and right, 0. You have to set up your scale so the computer knows how big things are in the picture. And then you also need to set the 0 point for where you want to call time 0. Let's do them in that order. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this video forward. You can kind of see what's happening here. So let's say we're going to try and answer the question of how high Archer bounces on that one bounce. I get him really good. We're going to try and answer how high does he bounce, and then also what speed does he go up at, something like that. Okay, we can answer lots of questions about these things. So I'm going to set my origin to be right underneath Archer's butt when the trampoline seems to be pretty much relaxed. So I'm going to say that it looks to me as though the trampoline's pretty flat right there. He's just barely touching it. I'm going to call that 0 for height and then 0 for left and right position as well. So that's going to be our point 0, 0. Okay. The next thing we need to do is set our scale. So if I hover over the buttons here, it tells me what I'm going to get. So set scale. I've got a meter stick taped to this front post right here. And I'm also happen to be holding on to a meter stick in this video. And I did that so that I could use it for this discussion. We need to draw a line along this meter stick here and tell the computer how long that is. Now the default is that it's going to say 1 meter. And that's fine in this case. That's a meter stick, so that's 1 meter. However, it could be anything you want to. You know, if you didn't have something, you could use your height or maybe the length of something else in the video that you know the length of. But something important to consider is why I put 2 sticks in this video. This meter stick, if you look at it, seems to be much smaller than this meter stick is. And that is simply because the meter stick on the post is a lot closer to the camera than the meter stick that I'm holding on to. And so because of the perspective, it makes the sizes different. So when you go to set the scale up in your video, you want to make sure you select something that is the same distance from the camera as the object you're looking at. I'm looking at Archer in this case. And so I'm using the meter stick that is as far from the camera as Archer is, or at least as close as possible. This meter stick is a lot closer to the camera. If I used that for my 1 meter, I would get really funny data for my data about Archer because the scales would be off. He's further from the camera than the meter stick was. So we've got our scale set. We've set our origin. The last thing we want to do is set time to be 0 at some point that we're interested in. So I'm looking at Archer. He's about ready to start a new bounce. So I want to say that this is the bounce I'm going to be interested in. In order to say this should be time 0, I click on this button down here in the lower right, and I say that at movie time 1.8, graph time should be 0. So we're starting the graph at this point, time equals 0. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick a spot on Archer, and normally it would be a good idea to pick his center of mass, which would be like around his belly button. Because of the way he's sitting here, that's really tough to do. So I'm going to try to pick a spot that is easy to find and that doesn't wiggle around a lot. And I think that if I pick his ear, that actually would be a really good thing to click on. So I'm going to try to click on the middle of Archer's ear in every slide, and what you'll see is that every time I click on it, the movie automatically advances forward 1 frame. Now, the computer software knows how a standard movie works. It's 30 frames per second. So really what it's doing is it's pairing a time starting from the 0 time that we set up. It's pairing a time to each one of these data points that I've got, and then it's measuring the distance left and right and then up and down from that 0 mark we made, and it's using the scale that we set up in order to make those measurements. It's pretty cool. So I'm going to stop here. I have enough data points to get at least one full bounce. I'm going to stop, and then we'll go over and look at what we can do with this data once we have it. So if I click this arrow thing and then go to this background image, you can see what we have here. Actually, there's two things being graphed. The red dots will be the X position, the left and right position. I'm not super interested in that. And the Y dots will be the up and down position. So that's kind of interesting. We can look at this graph and we can see, I'm going to turn off the X, and I can see here that if I go up to the top here, that Archer bounced over 70 centimeters. If I use the examine feature, I can tell you exactly. Seems like he's height changed about almost 80 centimeters, 0.79 meters is how high he bounced in that part of the video. If I'm most curious about his velocities or his accelerations, I can change this graph to be Y velocity by just simply clicking over here on the Y axis and changing it to what I want it to be. I'll highlight that section of the graph there, and I can find the slope there. I expect his slope to be negative 9.8 meters per second, and I can see here that it's almost exactly negative 10, so that's pretty close. So that's an example of what you can do with the data once you have got the video data collected. The sky's really the limit. It's your imagination and your creativity is the only thing that's keeping you from doing cool stuff with this software for your projects.